Hello to the Betaverse. Hello, good now to you. Welcome to BetaCodex Live. I am Ryan Erickson, and I am here as I am occasionally. Well, actually, I think I'm always here. And the other person who's on the screen now, Niels Flagging, he is also always here. A little pixelated, but that's okay. We do that. We'll salute each other. And we were speaking before coming on here about a Shakespearean play, The Tempest, that you're going to be seeing here in the future. And I think that actually, now that I think about it, is a pretty good intro to our topic today, which, as you can see above me here, complexity. Actually, facing complexity is inevitable. That was the old title, but yeah. So The Tempest and storms and complexity. So
Yes,
all
they are
right.
inevitable. Surprise is inevitable.
Oh, I love it. I
Except when
love
you're
it.
dealing with machines, then there is no surprise. It's just
Well, they're dead.
yeah. So
Yes,
complexity
except for
is it's neither good nor bad, as we like to say, right?
yeah, absolutely. Neither good nor bad. It just is, and that was part of the whole build up to this was, or at least before figuring out what the next theme was, is that, well, what are some of the things that aren't just talked about, or that you and I talk about and write about, and that have just become just knowledge, just facts that you and I accept, but not facts that everyone might really think about. But it is again, and it's a fact of life, and it's not like the old Facts of Life show back in the 80s with Lisa Whelchel and Nancy McKeon. So, yeah. Did you ever see that show? Did that
No.
show ever come in your? Yeah.
I never at least I do not know about it. Maybe it has a different title in the German.
No, that's dating me, and I think it's also saying something about my taste in TV. But so I did a little bit of writing this morning just to kind of prime the space, and I would like to kind of go back to the beginning of why I came into this space. What was really interesting about the BetaCodex specifically for me was also, I think, part of how you came from the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable to BetaCodex was this idea of it's action oriented, that it's about don't just talk about complexity, don't just talk about this stuff, actually go and do something, help people do what? Well, organize for complexity, right? That even that elegant little title of the book it's right there. It's like, what are we going to do about this thing? So
Question.
oh, I was getting there. I was yeah, so I was getting there. So this is, I guess the question is when there was a frustration that when you were, I'm guessing that the frustration about being in the theoretical mode, talking about what beyond budgeting would help with. Why are you doing it? And boy, I don't know if there's necessarily a question there, but how did you? Oh yeah, what was it that frustrated you most? I think when you said, I want to take action, and this complexity should this stuff, I want to do something. What was that like for you, and how has that energy moved
Yeah,
you forward into your
yeah,
practice? So
yeah, yeah. That leads us to another Shakespeare plays title. What is it? Much Ado About Nothing.
I was, damn it, I was yeah, Much Ado About Nothing.
There's there's Much Ado About Nothing, and yes, you mentioned the Beyond Budgeting movement, which was part of my initial curious stages. I mean, before that, I was in corporations, and then I became a director in the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable, and there was Much Ado About Nothing, really. If you look at I think if you would look at what Beyond Budgeting is and does today, it's still the same thing. Yeah, people meeting occasionally, chatting and exchanging stories, and not acting really consistently, and that got me a little bit frustrated after 4 or 5 years. And I think the same kind of spirit has been dominant in the other movements as well, all these other movements that we occasionally mention, total quality, lean, agile, even organizational development, etc. Lots of ranting, lots of repeating, the industrial age is over. Yes, but do we dare to act? That's a question, right? It's more. I think it's kind of lame to always keep talking, contemplating the same, or keep voicing the same criticism without doing nothing. It's irrelevant, I think. So yeah, we have to move on, and that's what the BetaCodex wanted to do from the beginning, from the humble beginnings in 2008 on. Yes, escape the knowing doing gap, as some people would say, right?
Oh, did we talk about that? Like the knowing, like the end of the knowing doing gap is like, yeah, well, we don't know what to do about it. At the very end.
Not sure what we don't know.
The knowing doing gap. The book,
Yes.
The knowing doing gap. At the
Yes.
end of the book, they basically say, we don't know what to do about the knowing doing
Yeah,
gap.
and maybe that's part of the problem, right? That we do not admit that we know a damn lot, an awful lot. So we have to dare and do the thing, get the fuck going, with the kind of transformation that we talking about. That was always the intention. And from my personal, if you would ask me about my personal story, I mean, we tried 2008 when we split apart from the Beyond Budgeting movement, created the BetaCodex network, and then at a certain point I met Silke, and we advanced a lot conceptually. Tried, but the change management approaches weren't right. They weren't a good fit, so it didn't work out to pull these organizational transformations through. So we stopped a little bit, or we were careful, about what we are aspiring to and looking out for a better approach. Then we found it in 2018, and now now we're doing it, on a frequent basis with companies. So it's a long and I mean, since I joined the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable, that was 20 years ago. So we have learned a lot. We know a lot more. We really know how to do this stuff. Meanwhile, the others are still ranting, having the same conversations about budgeting and whatever. And it's just, I feel ashamed for them. But okay, it's their problem, not our problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could go very vulgar with this, but I'll not do that. I mean, it's whatever. We'll get totally kicked off. Not that we're monetized, but
no, and it's not. I'm not angry about anything. I think it's crazy. It's hilarious. Lots of people in the lean or agile spheres and so on. Many people still call themselves agilists, etc. And still they don't want to move anything. So okay, good. Yeah. In the meanwhile, we are doing this shit, and I think that's the work that's worth doing.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is the work that's worth doing. And then, but you think about it, why do many people spend so much time talking about it and in the ivory towers talking to each other? And believe you me, I'm the biggest fan of dialogic change and these kinds of things, like people engaging with topics for the purpose of doing something together. But when I was just thinking about this, that I'm writing, like, why do I keep thinking about it? Because it feels smart. I feel like I'm getting smarter if I'm talking about this. That's why I'm saying, oh, I know the difference between the simple and the clear and the complicated and the chaotic. And then I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to
talk about the makes you look smarter.
Well, you feel like, and then again, when someone spits word salad at you, and you just chomp it up, and you feel, and there is a value to categorization at a point, right? So there's a very distinct categorization that you make in the work and that we talk about that really made sense to me. Is it's the blue and the red, it's dead and the alive. There's the difference that's the difference that makes a difference, to borrow another term there.
It's crucial, yeah.
Yeah, and so what? Boy, the knowing. the knowing doing gap, even though the end of the book is kind of crazy, but that's this crossing the chasm, and that okay, why do folks often sit too long in the theory, and what is, what's the issue, what's the deal with these folks, in your, not to psychologize anyway, what would you say as a pattern of what do you think's going on, the why, what is in the action, in the knowing doing gap, from your experience that you see?
In Europe, you mean? Okay. With regards
No,
to what?
no, with regard to your consulting experience, when there's, if you encounter folks who are pre-transformation, let's say,
Yes.
and that there's this hesitance to take action, maybe. I don't know. That's I'm trying to get to the question again. I'm
No,
wondering.
it's a good question. It's a very good question. The thing that we're talking about here in this podcast always, I think, is the non-obvious. For example, when we talk about theory X, theory Y, it's not obvious that there is a theory X and a theory Y, and that there are no theory X human beings, and that this kind of thing has consequences. The same with complicatedness and complexity. Unless you distinguish the two, the blue and the red, the complicated and complex, you will not feel that appalled about the under-complex actions going on in organizations, the under-complex tools that are being used, like budgeting and planning. You kind of it becomes obvious, these problems, or the dogmas around and the myths, they become more and more glaringly obvious once you submit to theory, once you accept theory, like theory X, theory Y, and the difference between the crucial distinction between the blue and the red. So what happens in the marketplace? I think the marketplace is blinded not by science, which would be good, which is a song by Thomas Dolby. She blinded me with science. Do you know that song?
God, I know that's one of my favorite songs from back in 1982.
Fantastic. So it would be lovely if we were all blinded by science, but we're blinded by tools and bollocks, as the British say. So how do I think those in my consulting practice, in our consulting practice with Red 42, I think it is the people who face the dilemma that start to understand that something is profoundly wrong with alpha or command and control. Those become the clients, right? So
yeah,
it's very simple, and so no convincing is necessary. Actually, what's necessary is to teach a bit more, to deepen the understanding a little bit, and the distinctions, and the capability of seeing through the bullshit that's happening in the organization, to see how vital it is to change now, together with all the willing and so on. But it's not. I think what our topic today is complexity, and you call it the gift that keeps on giving. That's the one of the realities of this world, is that it is not static. It advances. There is things like progress and decay and perpetual change. So we have to adapt, right? And
Perpetual Change, also another fantastic song by Yes, back on the Yes album in 1970.
Yes, thank you.
So, but I want to step back there a little bit in the idea of, and I think I was the knowing doing gap. I kind of went there, but you took it somewhere where I think it really needed to go. Is that we're not really talking about people who know necessarily what to do and are afraid to do it for some reason. Because I was going to say, well, if you're faced with if you're looking off the cliff, you don't want to just jump without doing it. I think.
Yeah. Why use that metaphor? I never use that kind of metaphor.
Well, I'm just
under control, so you can walk on, you can keep going. But with beta, there is no cliff, there is no risk, there's no risk.
Well, I'm just some kind that the reality is that if someone is on a cliff and they look at the bottom, they're not.
Yes.
It is stupid to actually just walk straight off the cliff and go and die. But I mean, that's not what we're talking about here.
Yes.
the title that we came up with eventually was like, facing complexity is inevitable.
Yes.
And what is the opposite of facing something? It's ignoring it.
Yes.
Right. And that, so if I'm ignoring that, if I don't even recognize or if I'm saying, nope, I'm going to stick with my planning. I'm going to stick with budgeting. I'm going to stick with telling people what to do, how to do it, or else. And that's the whole bit. Now, so I'm ignoring the humanity of the people that I'm with. I'm disrespecting their dignity and their
Yes.
unique beauty of being able to handle surprise and engage in relationship and all that kind of stuff. I'm just like, nope. I don't want to deal with that kind of bullshit. You do what I say because this is the plan, right? This is the plan. We have predicted the future. I have predicted the future, and it shall happen this way. And if it happens this way, I'm the hero. And if it doesn't happen that way, it's because you didn't do what I told you to. Right.
Sure.
So that I think
That's the feeble logic of command and control.
Exactly. Command and control is ignoring complexity. Yeah. Beta is embracing complexity. Yes. And again, organizing for it.
Yes. I think it shouldn't surprise us that in organizations there is widespread that people tend to ignore reality. We see that in the political sphere as well, in our societies, that for example, everybody who finds populism appealing, populism is all about ignoring reality, and constructing different awkward kinds of alternative realities, right? Fake stuff. So it should come as no surprise to us that ignorance, or let's say anti-scientific sentiment is common in organizations. It's no surprise, And even in teaching, I mean, people learn this stuff about budgeting and target setting and strategy and cost management. The nonsense, they learn it somewhere in universities or colleges or faculties or whatever courses, which are filled with, anti-scientific nonsense. Yeah.
And in an environment that is based on rewarding someone for doing well on a complicated piece of paper and saying they've gotten 97% on some, that, so they can get the goodies and climb up to get the certificate at the end of it without really engaging with anything. So
sure, but yeah, again, it's consistent with what's happening in our world. Scientific insight is ignored, and belief or faith or whatever, religious assumptions, quasi-religious assumptions dominate organizations, and that's something that W. Edward Deming complained about 40 years and more ago. He kept accentuating that we needed more rationality in organizations, in business, and in managing.
Well, I mean, this also comes to a principle that is shared between Scrum, or at least it's stated that way, and in the BetaCodex is transparency, right? And achieving transparency, that looking, and this is facing reality, so a lot of the hoarding of information and these kind of power games about I have all the information.
Yeah.
I don't give two shits about transparency. I care about my rewards, and I care about those things, and not necessarily about, regardless of what you believe and what you do in your own life. We're here in this sphere of activity in the organization. This is what's happening. The market is doing this. These are coming in. Our budgets are always wrong because they're stupid.
Yes. And brilliantly framed, by the way. Instead of creating transparency, we give people plans and budgets and fixed targets and incentives. So it's a whole construction of an alternative fake world, right? That's going on in organizations. And how can you believe how can you promote rationality, let's say agility, intelligent entrepreneurial thinking and acting in an organizations if you do not create the necessary level of transparency? I'm always kind of appalled when I start working with our clients and I notice how little transparency they have about not even about the actual numbers.
Well, it's a false belief. It's a false belief that a person can control nature, and that you can control, and that
Yes,
it's ethical and right. Yeah, it's hubris to control other people, and it's the whole, when you dig into command and control, okay, so both command and control, bad, but what are you, when you're really talking about that, you're talking about the idea of control, that me, I'm controlling you, this is power over, and that's also, I'm controlling you by budget, I'm controlling you by incentives, and I'm controlling you under fear of sanction. That all of that control is just it's a sea of shit, that it's, if you've always been swimming in it, you don't realize what you're in, and then once you get your head out of it, then that's it's liberating, and I sometimes find it very frustrating because I feel like I'm speaking a different language, when we talk about that.
Yeah, that's why I think it's the only relief is for us to actually transform organizations or help organizations transform, depending on what roles we are in professionally, because otherwise you will just. This is one of the subtitle of our podcast episode today is let's not keep just ranting. We have to do something about it, right? So looking at the sea of stupidity or learned helplessness, or however you frame it, or the sea of acquired lack of reality,
I love sea of stupidity. I'm writing that down. That's awesome. The sea of stupidity, sailing the sea of stupidity. Sowing the seeds of stupidity. Sowing the seeds of stupidity. There you go.
Now is the time of the year, the end of the year. So of course, I sometimes do a little bit of looking back, especially when I write a paper or something. Like I look back a little bit of the beginnings of the BetaCodex and so on, and what have we accomplished this year and so on. And that was, of course, one of the reasons why I thought remaining part of one of those movements that didn't go anywhere, that didn't advance, that didn't even remotely dare to achieve transformation, that was constructed in a way not to tackle transformation. It was just about those movements that are just about talking, earning some money, getting some income, talking, ranting, creating community, talking about some cases, but always from far, from really afar, and then to do some mental masturbation and then keep going with the same shit again and again, And I felt that was hopeless and nonsensical. At least I didn't want to spend my life. And now, 20 years on, I think we've proven that organizational transformation is within reach, that it can be done, that you do not need to be a genius like W. Edwards Deming to make it happen. You do not need that much time. Half a year will suffice, and I think that's something. In a complex world, that's what we should aim to achieve.
I think, and also again in complexity, trusting that human beings can grow and engage with surprise, and that
Yes.
the human species is uniquely capable of doing that in their cognitive abilities here. And I think this brings me into another theme that came in writing this morning was the behaviorists come into the stimulus response bit, and that also, so the Viktor Frankl in the Man's Search for Meaning came up with this kind of a take on that, was around between stimulus and response, there's a space. And that in that space is where it makes all the difference. So the stimulus of being faced with, what is, again, complexity, being faced with complexity, what do you do in that space, right? And either you react from, this is my plan. I'm going to try and control people so that this plan makes it work, so that I can crow about this and blame if it's wrong. Or do take, the stimulus, and before you respond, if this is, I think the beta insight for me is so if you're pausing to be present. You're present, and you're present to the preparation that you have done, right? And if you're preparing and being, again, present in every moment that you're there, paying attention to what's happening, then by that investment of attention in your preparation, that you're able to respond and thrive in the world that is, in the complexity that is. So.
Totally. Preparation is the thing, right? Preparation is what we can do in complexity, what's worth doing in complexity, because if there is uncertainty and surprise, then of course you shouldn't decide things in advance, but you can prepare to be fit when surprise strikes, when complexity strikes. And that's what we should adhere to in our private lives, professional lives, and in organizations, as organizations as well.
And not even complexity doesn't even strike, right? It's there. It's just if you notice it and you realize, whether it's opening the eyes or getting smacked in the face by the surprise, right? Yes. It's the surprise.
And there is this, not sure if there is this saying in English as well. If you do not go with the times, you go with the times. You fade away. If you do not go, if you do not keep on changing, change will swallow you in the end. It would make you irrelevant. And I mean, this is true on so many levels. It's also true for Agile. I mean, Scrum is a great example. We've talked about this repeatedly. It has become totally irrelevant because nobody cared enough about Scrum to adapt it to changing times and changing popularity of the changing market share, so to speak, of Scrum. So we
sold a damn lot of certificates, though. Sold a damn lot of training.
Sure. No, and as a business, it's functional. Everything else is completely dysfunctional about Scrum. That's okay. That's everybody's choice, but it also means prolonged irrelevance at some point, right? Or complexity will make things irrelevant over time. It's a matter of fact. That's why we have to modify things. That's why the Agile Manifesto isn't fresh and relevant anymore, because time goes by, things change. The language changes, the facts change, the competitive environment changes. So we have to adapt, and that's what. In Beta, for example, I think we have to take care of that ourselves as well. It adapts. It applies to Beta as much as it does to organizational development, models, and so on.
And I think, to be true, they're the 12 principles of the BetaCodex. They have been consistent over the years, but the wording has changed slightly, and the framing has changed. And to its credit, the Scrum Guide has changed. And I think the tool, it may not be a perfect tool, but I think the fault is in the abuse of the tool. And I think that's.
But that's exactly my point. If there is abuse, then you have to react. You have to make it more rigorous, for example. That's why the BetaCodex is the BetaCodex, because the previous movement, long time ago, beyond budgeting, it wasn't that rigorous on many levels. That's why we came up with the BetaCodex. That's why the BetaCodex looks different than the so-called beyond budgeting principles. of 15, 20 years ago, because we thought, okay, we must make it more relevant. We must go with the times. We must make it sharper, And then we made it sharper 5, 6 years later. We made it sharper again, and we will do it again at any point, once we realize it's
and
sharp.
that sharpness, I like that too. That sharpness makes a lot of people uncomfortable. I mean, and I've noticed that very explicitly, very recently. So I made this grand pronouncement about, well, there's no such thing as an agile, as the agile community, the unified monolithic block of everybody who does that, because it's so ridiculously unspecific. And to say, okay, so when you say community, when I hear that, this is what I mean. Right. And also, again, to Dan Mezek's credit, when he does the agile transformations that he would do in open space agility, okay, so we're going to set, this is what agile means, right? So do we understand this? This is what agile means. This is what Scrum means. This is what Kanban means. This is what these terms mean here. It is teaching language, and I think that's part of, I think, the challenge that the movement, the BetaCodex movement, and again, we haven't really talked about it. It is a movement. It says it explicitly on the website. There's so much information on the website that says what this thing is, as opposed to this.
It has a scripture.
It has. Oh, that's a whole wonderful book there. Scripture, liturgy. The Harrison Owen Spirit book goes into that too. When you mentioned beyond budgeting as well, was the complexity conversation about that this idea of the complicatedness and complexity, had that come up at that point, or was that something that through your reading and your studying insight that came? I mean, was the Taylor bathtub back then, or I mean,
no, that wasn't. No, beyond budgeting never. At the beyond budgeting roundtable, we never wrapped our head around complexity, which was one of the one of the shortcomings. But yes, the theory, theory X theory, why distinction was there. The reference to Douglas McGregor was there early on. But complexity was never well understood. And I suppose it's because, the inclination of the beyond budgeting movement was to just take care of the financial side and the performance measurement and management side of things. Decentralization wasn't that thoroughly understood either, except by Robin Frey.
And again, my intent with the episode wasn't to just bitch about the beyond budgeting.
It's just a backdrop. So the realization that complexity had a lot to do with it, or was key, that only came to us in 2006, 2007, 2000. And then I wrote the book in 2014, right? That was really the tipping point, so to speak. 2014, when I published the Organize for Complexity book, that's when it really took more prominent. It became more prominent in our work, and I think, of course, understanding the impact of complexity on organizations fully, which we hadn't understood fully before, that meant that we were better able to embrace decentralization. Decentralization, in a way, I think, can only be grasped fully if you recognize the distinction between the blue and the red. So then you can look at the cell structure design, the poster behind your head there. You can only fully grasp that once you understand organizational complexity and the complexity of value creation. Thank you for showing it. So all the things, I would say, there was beyond budgeting, there was socio-technical systems, there was a little bit of influence from Agile, and a lot of influence from Lean and Total Quality and Deming and so on, and from economists, management gurus like Peter Drucker and so on. And it all came together when we started to finally recognize that complexity was the key.
Mm.
In a way, you might say human complexity, which is part of theory Y, is also, it's also the same thing. Human freedom, human choice, human motivation. That is all part of the complex world that we are in. Because part of the complexity comes also from human behavior side of things. People are not a black box. People cannot be fully controlled. In a behaviorist fashion. So yeah, I think complexity was a key. Yeah.
And I think the doing something about it. Yeah, and we talked about that. It always comes back to what are you going to do? And I think there are other bits about that. So there's in terms of, well, I guess there's two things, but the first thing we talk about, what are you going to do about it? In complexity, so you're going to organize it, but then there's also a part of what, and we hadn't really stated this about, we kind of alluded to it before, was this education, and that this tilling of the soil, this planting the seeds, that teaching the language, providing the education to say, okay, these are the 12 principles. This is what cell structure design is, and this is, and not to go in and have a whole class of everything thing, but it is about, I think this also kind of leads to the Montessori method that you talked about, these educational approaches that are very group oriented, very dialogic, and that in not just talking about the stuff in the abstract, doing the stuff in the moment. And I think that's very important to to what's happening. I think this is a great book and a great topic, is educating for complexity, because I think it's something that's a gap. We see it in the MBA courses that come up, and we talk a lot about how education has been crafted to be this factory kind of thing. And a lot of the folks in the change world, at least in the change world that I dip in, recognize that and are saying, the way that our students as educators are being educated because of the system, educating them to engage in the world many times like it's 1960 instead of 2024.
Sure. By the way, when you just mentioned educating for complexity, I wondered why I never even thought of writing that book as well. Would have been a lovely addition to the series and to Beta as well. But yes, also when you talked about education, I thought of 10, 15 years ago when Enron and these other scandals happened, and all the business schools added ethics courses to their curriculum, instead of making everything about ethics. Making ethics prevalent in all the teaching. No, you create an ethics course that's separate. Like, it's something you should also know about. There is ethics. But we also have these great courses about investment banking and crypto. By the way, I just became aware again of the work of a fabulous person. Maybe we should do an episode about that person as well. An investment guru who passed away a couple of years ago, maybe just 1 or 2 years ago. Charlie Munger. Do you know Charlie?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The ultimate destroyer of crypto. I mean, he did whole lectures about why all crypto is criminal and theft and should be banned.
That I'll have to look into. I mean, that there's a distinction there. That there are distinctions that blockchain is not crypto. It is only crypto. I mean, that the blockchain technology has many uses for it, and that are valuable.
Supposedly it has many uses, but it doesn't. So it has become crypto. That's the trouble.
That's another conversation, because there's I think you're missing a lot there.
So what's being done with blockchain that's interesting? And that's
so the whole Web3. I mean, the Web 3.0 movement is not necessarily what I want to talk about. There's, again, the Ethereum blockchain and smart contracts embedded into a blockchain that allow for authorization and permissionless interaction, so as I engaged with it, that the as a tool to
Sure.
I hate the word empower. I hate using it, but
No, sure.
I
mean, what you're saying,
it can be a useful tool for decentralization.
but that's
what got to me.
Sure. But everybody knows that this is the conceptual underpinning of blockchain, or the aspiration of blockchain. The problem is that there is no serious economically. It doesn't make sense to use blockchain for the good things. It only makes economic sense to use blockchain for bad things, crypto in this case. Yeah, and so blockchain is conceptually wonderful, theoretically beautiful. In practice, there is no good use to it, because our world is not. And this is where the propaganda sets in, I think. Of course, there is a, let's say, utopian, romantic, anarchistic, romantic sentiment to blockchain. That's the blockchain propaganda has been based on this, on this myth, of course, the Japanese guy and so on. But the reality of blockchain is that it's just crypto. So and again, all crypto is gambling. Yeah, we have to talk about.
We might talk. We're way off on that.
We might. We should. I suggest we should do another episode on Charlie.
I think it. And I before I go and say you don't know what you're talking about there.
No. I think I owe
some additional research in there. So, but it's important. I think this is an example of we don't have to agree, but there's an importance to be specific and to be precise about what we're talking about. So
but I talked about crypto. You talked about blockchain. I think blockchain is irrelevant. That's what I just repeated.
And I think
talk about crypto.
I think crypto is not the game. I think blockchain is a bigger game beyond that.
No, it's not a bigger game because there's no other application to blockchain than crypto. It could be a bigger game. That's what you're saying, but that is faith. That's belief. You're talking about your belief in blockchain, which is beautiful. Come up with something useful. Nobody has done it. Apparently, it's not economically or anyway attractive. Of course, the blockchain.
How would you know if it were?
It's like a religion.
Yeah, well, there's
liberalist, anarchist religion. Blockchain promises.
Are you using libertarian? I think
humanity from the shackles of bureaucracy and governments and so on. That's a liberalist approach to thinking.
And I think that
the state.
I think, and that's it's just a slight difference. You're talking about the libertarian, the libertarian ethos here. This is what we talk about, like the Mises and kind of.
This spirit makes blockchain as a concept, as a theory, so appealing. But you took us there. I was talking before about crypto, which is the reality of blockchain, which is, let's say, appealing to the dumb masses. It's manipulation, it's fraud, it's a criminal industry that has sprung off the blockchain mythology.
The Bankman-Frieds of the world, certainly make
but
that.
All of it is criminal. I mean, read Charlie Munger. Don't believe what I'm saying.
So that's how we got is Charlie Munger, and that kind of perked my ears up a little bit, and so. Yeah. There's a
amazing guy.
And yes, Charlie Munger, that was the almanac. I forget what is the almanac that he talks about. Munger's almanac. But so, and what does this all have to do with complexity, right? And I don't know about but the word about the blockchain comes to decentralization comes to me. That's why I think about that in that world is what do you do when you realize it's like that the unpredictability. It's like it's so obvious that life all around us is as nature unpredictable. Human life and humanity is surprising. There are patterns that can be observed, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean that at every moment you can predict what's going to happen. And so what do you do in that? You've got complex tools, right? So you talked about complex tools, and that all these this, and I wish I knew what all of them were, because the book's not in English yet. I'd like to help that. So what are the tools that can be offered now in terms of facing complexity? So when we face complexity, what are the tools that are available to us now? Not to be tool heads about it, but what are the tools that we have? There's one up here.
Self-structure design is a complex tool in our minds.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, open space is also a complex tool.
Yeah.
In the book,
relative targets. I'm throwing you a softball here to say, what are the complex tools? Open space beta, relative targets.
I think the beauty of distinguishing between the complicated and the complex, the blue and the red, is that in turn allows you to think, okay, if we're dealing with complexity here in business and so on, as an organization, then what kind of complexity fit tool or approach do we need to tackle that?
Yeah.
If we're dealing with a complex future, then probably budgeting and planning isn't a good idea. We need something like preparation. So what helps us to prepare? What kind of approaches, complex tools are there that help us to prepare team-wise or organization-wide for surprising, unpredictable future? Or if we look at, we want to deal with compensation and pay, what kind of pay systems are there that do not use, incentives or fixed targets that should be met and so on? So
compensate for complexity.
For every complex problem, exactly, we call it relative pay, right? So for every complex problem that an organization faces, there are complex tools. Or let's take organizational change and development. That's complex as well. So what kind of approach helps us there? Open space beta is one complex tool that our time box change and so on, instead of change management with this, which is linear and planned and so on. So for every complex problem in the world of organizing and work, there are complex solutions, there are complex tools, and we should stick with those, instead of OKRs. Or management objectives with this, which is the same.
It's just
stuff, right? So you can as managers, as executives, as company owners, and so on, we can always opt for under-complex stupid tools, or we can opt for complex tools. And yes, I think that's not a very common distinction, right? We fall under.
I think in another aspect of this, another axis, I think that complexity is also there's an idea that there's speed and rapidity, that change doesn't slow down. That advances of technology that's just Moore's law, such as this, hasn't slowed down now, hasn't slowed down yet, and there are other technical advances, I think.
Yes.
So, but you want to go?
No, it's good. It's good. Continue. That's good.
So, no, I was going to say that the faster the world is going into complexity is real, the faster each of these domains of activity go, the quicker, the more often you're faced with it, the more frequently you're faced with it, and the more frequently you're faced with, the less prepared you are for it. If you have not prepared in advance and are present to that complexity and are aware of it. Yes. So everything happens. If you're not complexity aware and cognizant of it, I need more control. I must have more control. More control. Because I'm and God bless the folks who don't realize that they're feeling this anxiety, like, oh my God, I have to hit my numbers because they want, but everything's happening so fast. So sorry, I think why do you think people have heart attacks and at that level of authority
and anxiety and everything and inaction? I think there's a good example in something that appeared in our last transformation process with a client, just in this second semester of this year. there was this company, this software company that we worked with. They have like 300 to 400 corporate clients, larger organizations. So very few clients, but still 300 to 400. Yeah. And then, of course, the sales department had in that company had the mission to, administer the 300 to 400 clients, and they, of course, then you create a CRM, you create forms in which you document stuff, and one person documents, the others read, and the managers supervise and steer. And they said something like, oh, we are just 8 people in the sales department. We can only get in touch with every client once a year, max, Okay, so that is dealing with clients and client relationships in a complicated manner. CRM system, documentation, management meeting, targets, key account managing. They had all this in place.
Rinse and repeat. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, there was a lot of frustration because nobody really felt close to the clients and so on. Nothing worked. And they had endless discussions about the forms and the documentation that had to be done and so on. Okay, what's decentralization? Adopting the cell structure design, right? They came up with this idea. Okay, we will have 8 periphery cells. Small company, right? 70 people, 8 periphery cells. And okay, now if you say every periphery cell should have more or less the same amount of clients, divide 300 clients by 8, you get to
40 or so,
35, 40 clients. So one of the quick realizations during the 90 days was, okay, if every cell, every team, 5 to 7 people, has only 40 clients or so, you could call each of these clients every month. Easy. It's no biggie. Yeah. It's no big deal. You do not have to document because they are we are a team, 5 to 7 people. They are our clients. Why document shit if they are our clients? No, we just have to know them, talk to them frequently, as frequently as possible, work with them. There will be no need for documentation or even a CRM. You can scrap the CRM. You do not need Salesforce. If you know your clients, that's the best thing you can do. Just know your clients. Invite them occasionally, visit them, call them, period. And that's complexity. Complexity means make things smaller, make things, make relationship happen. And then you don't need the complicated tools, almost nothing.
And this is, I think this is also a callback to the social density episode that we did. Because that social density with a team of 10, even 10 is difficult, and that requires a level of coordination that adds the noise and that kind of stuff that you can't get to that level of. Hey, you have a conversation. Have you ever tried to have a conversation with 15 people at the same time? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
That's why we always say to our clients, 7 is a very good number. 6 is very good still. 8, you start to get into trouble. Better keep it at 7 people.
Well,
and usually that works out very well.
This is the jazz pattern, and this is the Gil Evans kind of, I think, was it the septet that's about the max that you can go in a jazz ensemble without having someone kind of doing the coordination and responsible for that. And of course there are, if you are putting together, a big band performance, an orchestra, those that level of synchronization and coordination, it's required for that. And there's a container that's required for that to create that piece of art in that time. But when we're talking about surprise every moment, effectively, every time you pick up the phone and call a client, you don't know whether they're going to tell you the same thing they told you last time. Their world might have changed in a moment, and that as wishing to be of service to them and to help them go where they want to go, you've got to be prepared and present to what that need is in that moment, so that, and having had a relationship with them allows you to do that, and allows that to know, like, and trust you, so you can do that with them.
and they can shout at you and you still won't be offended because you know that you depend on each other and you have this real relationship. It's a relief really to work with, less clients that you can have a real relationship with, that your company truly, where you don't have different departments working for the client, but you as a team are fully responsible for the client relationship. It's a different game, right? So, and that's what self-structure design brings to an organization, this intimacy, of course, within your own team and with the client. It's an often overlooked effect of decentralization, that client relationships become much more direct, more, less bureaucratic, less prone to oversimplification, tooling, and steering.
Yeah, compliance. And that, well, is it we're too, oh, I can't help you because I've got to comply with the rules. According to our policy, I can't help you with that because I don't know you. I don't really give a shit about you because I don't know you. I'm like, I can just tell you all the policies that we have and that there shall be no deviation because I don't care.
Yes. I think even when a team in a decentralized structure has an unsatisfied client, a client who's annoyed or unhappy, it's still better to have that and no, this is our client, our relationship. We can fix it. We can do better than to throw it over some kind of wall to another department and hope that it will go away. So it's a whole different game. Yeah. And that allows for complex client relationships. But actually, beta is about complexity inwards and outwards, right? So.
Yeah, you mentioned the word game a couple times. I know we're an hour in. It opens up a box, but I think there's a beauty in this, in that there are two different games afoot. And I think one of the times that I talked about this, it felt really as a clarifying moment to say the game, the system of rules, and all this stuff that you have in alpha, that's your game A, right? So I know what I need to do to rise a letter. I know what I need to do, make a budget. I know what I need to do to write down my ticket to get this call, to send it to these people and that stuff. And
by the way, ticket systems are a sure sign of not acknowledging complexity. That's something that I learned this year as well. Where there is a ticket system, that complexity is ignored, even walled against. There's a big Chinese wall, against complexity. That's what a ticket system is.
I think there's something about that I think is interesting too, because there's a level of creating an artifact that you're documenting something. If you're doing a product, you're creating that products require documentation in order to operate properly. I think that's different than I think what you're saying. It's like, oh, I'm taking your phone call, I'm writing down what you said, and I'm going to use it as a lever, either against you, or that's the possibility to do that. But I think I want to have a conversation about what the evils of ticketing systems are, because that's one of those old things that it's like, okay, I kind of get it, but I kind of don't. Because I came from that world. I came from the help desk world.
Sure.
But the thing is and that you can navigate that environment in a complicated way, as if it were complicated. The people you're talking with, they're just robots and idiots. Or you can navigate that as if you're navigating complexity with that and having a conversation and seeking understanding and that kind of stuff, which is what you do. At least that's the way I approached it. In terms of when I was in the help desk, is that attempting to understand and showing curiosity, and because you're dealing with surprise every phone call you get. But that I think that kind of, I kind of got off the game bit, because I think this.
Okay, yeah, the game bit. Yes, sorry, the game bit. Yes.
Well, no, but I think the idea of learning to play a different game, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about any number of metaphors that you can use. A marching band versus jazz band.
This is a game. Power over is a game. Power with is a very
perfect.
Different game.
That's perfect. Yeah.
And complexity only has can only resonate in this kind of game. In this kind of game, no complexity.
It breaks. It
No
breaks.
robustness. Yeah.
Mm.
Good. This was fun. 1 hour should be enough, right?
Yeah, 1 hour should be enough. I'll try and chop this up into a couple bits, as I've been trying to do with our 56
so.
prior episodes.
Yes.
It is a daunting task. I
Yes.
am glad that I have at least some artificial assistance to make that happen, to kind of guide me through. But if any of you happen to see this in any point in the future, I will likely still be chopping up episodes and looking for
So you have been chopping?
nuggets in there. Pardon me?
You have been chopping recently?
I've been, well, I'm at the pre-chopping mode. I have chopped some of them up, but kind of we've shared some of the clips out.
Yes. Because recently I
I've
didn't see you publishing stuff, sharing stuff.
I mean, it's been, because a couple weeks ago,
Mhm.
I was like in the process of downloading all 60 audio portions. Some are in YouTube and some are in StreamYard here where we are
Yes.
now.
Yes.
And then it's a project. I didn't realize how much labor was going to be involved in that particular project. So, because what I've been doing before is publishing these shorts. I'll try and do some of these now, because you can automate them in StreamYard, and it picks kind of what's there and puts something out there. May not be the best nugget, but it's a decent nugget.
Yes.
So, but that's, I think for me, going, if in 2025, I think leveraging what we've already put out there.
Yes.
And
we will
really
keep doing these episodes as well.
Oh yeah, but and distilling what we have, in addition to amplify what we're doing going forward, and with the facts of
Great
life.
idea. Great idea.
And again, hopefully some more guests. I'm approaching a few potential guests to come on here from my other travels. And yeah, I'll leave that as a tease. So happy New Year to you very
Yes.
much.
Thank you.
I'm always happy to dance with you here in this space. And
see you soon.
See you soon. And thank you to all of you for your precious gift of time and attention. And a special thank you to the sponsor of this platform that we have, a friend of mine, Megan Elizabeth Morris, in the Intuitive Network. So it's borrowing this platform. She's donated it to us, and I'm very happy for that, so that we can continue to do this. So thank you all. Be more beta. Do what you're going to do. And, listen to Level 42.
See you in the next year.
See you in the next couple. In the new year. See you in the new year.